I never thought a handmade photo album would be the thing that destroyed my marriage. But there I was, wine glass in hand, laughing at what I thought was the most pathetic birthday gift I'd ever seen, while my husband's entire family watched in horrified silence. My name is Calantha Dorsey, and I'm 32 years old. I work as an admin assistant at a mid-sized insurance company, and honestly, I've always felt like I deserved more. More excitement, more attention, more appreciation for who I really am. My husband Adrien is an accountant, steady, reliable, boring as watching paint dry. At 36, he's got this whole responsible family man thing down to a science, but sometimes I feel like I'm suffocating in all that stability. The birthday party was at his mother Miriam's house, one of those cozy suburban places with doilies on every surface and family photos covering the mantel. Miriam had turned 61, and the whole Price family had gathered to celebrate. I'd already had 3 glasses of wine by the time we got to the gift-opening ceremony, and I was feeling loose, confident, ready to show these people what real personality looked like. "Oh, this is lovely," Miriam said, unwrapping a small rectangular package from Adrien's little sister, Emma. She was only 24, still living at home, working part-time at some craft store. The gift was wrapped in brown paper with a hand-drawn bow, already a red flag in my book. I leaned forward from my spot on the couch, curious to see what kind of bargain basement present we were dealing with. When Miriam opened it, I saw it was a photo album, the kind you can buy at any dollar store, covered in cheap fabric with plastic sleeves inside. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Miriam said, but I could hear the forced enthusiasm in her voice. She was just being polite. That's when I started laughing. Not a little chuckle, but a full-on belly laugh that echoed through the suddenly quiet living room. "Oh my God," I said, wiping tears from my eyes. "That's so quaint. Did you make that yourself, Emma? It's like something from an elementary school art project." The room went dead silent. I could feel Adrien tense up beside me, but I was on a roll. The wine had loosened my tongue, and I was finally saying what everyone was probably thinking. "I mean, it's sweet and all," I continued, gesturing with my wine glass, "but for a 60th birthday? Come on, you could have at least gone to Target and gotten something with some actual quality." Emma's face went bright red. She reached over and gently pulled the gift bag she'd brought closer to herself, like she was trying to hide it from me. That small gesture should have been my wake-up call, but instead, it just made me laugh harder. "What else is in there?" I asked, pointing at the bag. "More craft store specials." "Calantha," Adrien said quietly, his voice tight with warning. "Maybe we should—" "Oh, relax," I said, waving him off. "I'm just having some fun. Your family needs to lighten up a little. Not everything has to be so serious all the time." Miriam was still holding the photo album, and I could see she'd opened it to the first page. There were actual printed photographs inside, not the kind you get from your phone, but real pictures that someone had taken the time to develop and arrange. "Let me see that," I said, reaching for the album. "I want to see what other treasures are in there." Miriam hesitated for a moment, but then handed it over. I flipped through the pages, still giggling at what I saw. There were pictures of Adrien as a kid, family vacations, Christmas mornings, graduation photos. Each picture had a little handwritten note underneath it, like captions in a scrapbook. "Oh, wow," I said, my voice dripping with mock sentimentality. "This is like a whole family museum. How long did this take you, Emma? Did you spend your whole weekend at the craft table?" I kept flipping pages, reading some of the captions out loud in an exaggerated, sweet voice. Adrien's first day of school. Family camping trip 1995. Graduation day, so proud of our boy. The breaking moment came when I reached a page near the middle of the album. There was a recent photo of Adrien and me from last Christmas, and underneath it, in Miriam's careful handwriting, was a note that read, "So grateful for the wonderful woman who makes our son happy. Proud of Adrien for building such a stable life with a woman he loves." I was still tipsy, still performing for what I thought was my audience, so I read it out loud in that same mocking tone. "So grateful for the wonderful woman who makes our son happy," I said, batting my eyelashes dramatically. "Proud of Adrien for building such a stable life with a woman he loves." The room went completely silent, not just quiet, silent in a way that made my skin crawl. I looked up from the album and saw that everyone was staring at me. Miriam's face had gone pale. Emma looked like she was about to cry. My own sister Sabine, who had been encouraging my performance earlier, was suddenly studying her hands. Miriam didn't yell. She didn't even raise her voice. She just reached across the coffee table with both hands and gently took the album from me, closing it with a soft snap. "I think," she said quietly, "that's enough for tonight." The way she closed that album felt like she was closing a door, one that I didn't deserve to reopen. I suddenly realized that I'd crossed a line, but my pride wouldn't let me back down. "Come on," I said, trying to laugh it off. "I was just joking around. You guys are way too sensitive. It's actually really sweet that you put so much work into it, Emma. I just think, maybe next time you could—" "Calantha." Adrien's voice cut through my rambling like a knife. When I looked at him, his face was completely expressionless, but I could see something cold and angry in his eyes that I'd never seen before. He stood up from the couch without another word and walked out of the room. I heard the front door open and close a few seconds later. The silence that followed was deafening. Miriam carefully placed the photo album on the coffee table and folded her hands in her lap. Emma was wiping tears from her eyes, trying to be discreet about it. "Maybe," my mother Judith said from across the room, her voice carefully controlled. "We should call it tonight." I wanted to say something to fix it, to explain that I hadn't meant any harm, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I just sat there, still holding my wine glass, feeling like I was watching my life fall apart in slow motion. That was the moment everything started to unravel. I just didn't know it yet. After the disaster at Miriam's house, I needed to get out. I needed noise, music, people who would appreciate my sense of humor, instead of acting like I'd committed some terrible crime. Sabine suggested we hit downtown, maybe catch up with some friends at that new club everyone was talking about. "You need to blow off some steam," she said as we sat in my car outside Miriam's house. Adrien still hadn't come back inside, and I could see him standing by his car, talking on his phone. Probably to his mother, telling her how sorry he was for bringing such a terrible wife to her birthday party. "I wasn't even that bad," I said, checking my makeup in the rearview mirror. "They're all just way too uptight. It's like they've never heard a joke before." Sabine nodded, but I caught her glancing toward Adrien with a worried expression. "Maybe you should talk to him first." "No," I said firmly. "I'm not apologizing for having a personality. If he can't handle the fact that his wife isn't some boring suburban housewife, that's his problem." 20 minutes later, we were at Pulse, a trendy downtown club with exposed brick walls and way too many neon lights. The music was loud enough to drown out my thoughts, and there were plenty of people around who looked like they knew how to have fun. That's where I ran into Jessie Lynn. Jessie was my trainer at the gym. Well, former trainer. I'd stopped going to sessions a few months ago because Adrien thought they were too expensive, but Jessie and I had stayed friendly. He was 34, single, and exactly the kind of guy who made me remember what it felt like to be desired. "Calantha," he called out when he spotted me at the bar. "What are you doing here? I thought you'd be home with the family tonight." "Change of plans," I said, accepting the drink he offered. "Sometimes you just need to remind yourself that you're still young and fun, you know." Jessie laughed, and I felt that familiar flutter in my stomach. He had this way of looking at me like I was the most interesting person in the room, which was exactly what I needed after the humiliation at Miriam's house. "Where's Adrien?" he asked, glancing around like he expected my husband to appear. "Probably at home sulking," I said, taking a long sip of my drink. "He's mad because I hurt his family's feelings. Apparently, I'm not allowed to have opinions about anything." "That sucks," Jessie said, moving closer so he could hear me over the music. You shouldn't have to apologize for being yourself. Finally, someone who understood. We found a table in the corner where Sabine was already holding court with a group of people I recognized from various parties and social media. Everyone was laughing, drinking, having the kind of night I'd been craving for months. "So, what happened?" asked Tasha, Jesse's on-and-off girlfriend. She was sitting across from us, her dark eyes fixed on me with an expression I couldn't quite read. I launched into the story of the birthday party, playing up the drama and making it sound like I'd been the victim of some massive family conspiracy. By the time I finished, everyone was laughing and agreeing that the Price family sounded like they needed to get a sense of humor. "I mean, who gives a handmade photo album to a 60-year-old woman?" I said, gesturing dramatically with my drink. "It's like giving someone a macaroni necklace, sweet but completely inappropriate for an adult." "You're terrible," Sabine laughed, but she was recording me on her phone. "Tell them about the captions." So I did, imitating Miriam's careful handwriting and Emma's earnest expressions. Everyone was cracking up, and I felt like myself again. Witty, entertaining, the center of attention in the best possible way. That's when Jesse asked me to dance. I should have said no. I should have remembered that I was married, that my husband was probably at home worried about me, that dancing with another man in a crowded club was exactly the kind of thing that could get me in trouble. Instead, I said yes. The dance floor was packed, and the music was the kind of heavy bass that you feel in your chest. Jesse was a good dancer, confident, smooth, the kind of guy who knew how to make a woman feel sexy. We started out keeping a respectable distance, just moving to the music, but as the night wore on and the drinks kept coming, we got closer. "You're amazing," he said, his mouth close to my ear so I could hear him over the music. "Adrien's crazy if he doesn't appreciate what he has." I could feel his hands on my waist, could smell his cologne, could see the way other people were watching us. Part of me knew I should stop, but a bigger part of me was loving every second of it. When was the last time someone had looked at me like that? When was the last time I'd felt desired instead of just tolerated? "He doesn't," I said, letting myself lean into Jesse's touch. "He thinks I'm too much, too loud, too dramatic, too everything." "His loss," Jesse said, and then we were dancing closer than we should have been, moving together in a way that definitely crossed some lines. I could see phones coming out around us, people taking pictures and videos, but I didn't care. Let them document it. Let them see that Calantha Dorsey was still young and desirable and fun. Let them see that I wasn't going to be trapped in some boring suburban marriage where my biggest excitement was watching my husband balance his checkbook. "You're playing with fire," Tasha said when I came back to the table for another drink. Her voice was cold and she was staring at me with obvious disapproval. "I'm just dancing," I said, but even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. The way Jesse and I had been moving together, the way we'd been looking at each other, that wasn't just dancing. "Uh-huh," Tasha said, "and I'm sure your husband would see it the same way." "My husband isn't here," I snapped, "and maybe if he paid half as much attention to me as Jesse does, we wouldn't have this problem." Tasha's expression hardened. "You're making a mistake, Calantha, a big one." But I was past caring about mistakes. I was having fun for the first time in months, feeling alive and desired and appreciated. When Jesse came back and asked for another dance, I didn't hesitate. We stayed until the club closed, and by then I was definitely too drunk to drive. Sabine called us an Uber, and I spent the ride home laughing about the night, replaying the best moments, feeling like I'd finally broken free from the suffocating routine of my marriage. It wasn't until I was lying in bed, listening to Adrien's steady breathing beside me, that I started to worry about those phones I'd seen. But even then, I told myself it was no big deal. So what if people had taken some pictures? I was just having fun. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I had no idea that by morning, everything would be different. I woke up Monday morning with a splitting headache, and a phone full of notifications. At first, I thought it was just the usual social media noise: likes, comments, friend requests from people I'd met the night before. But as I scrolled through my messages, a cold feeling started spreading through my chest. The first one was from my coworker, Jennifer. "Girl, you might want to check Instagram. People are talking." The second was from my cousin in Phoenix. "Saw the video. Everything okay?" Video? What video? I sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake despite my hangover. Adrien was already gone. He always left early on Mondays. But I could hear our 7-year-old daughter, Issa, getting ready for school downstairs. I opened Instagram and immediately saw what everyone was talking about. Someone had posted a video from the club, and I was front and center, dancing with Jessie in a way that left absolutely nothing to the imagination. The caption read, "When your husband's not around to keep you in check, when you're on she married actual drama, l'année messy." My stomach dropped. In the harsh light of morning, watching myself grind against another man while wearing my wedding ring, I could see how bad it looked. But it wasn't what people thought. It was just dancing, just innocent fun. The video had already been shared dozens of times, and the comments were brutal. "Isn't she married? Poor husband. This is why I don't trust married women at clubs. Someone should send this to her family." I quickly deleted the tag and blocked the person who posted it, but I knew it was too late. Once something goes viral, you can't take it back. My phone rang. It was my mother. "Calantha Marie Dorsey," she said, using my full name like I was still 12 years old. "What in God's name were you thinking?" "Mum, it's not what it looks like. It looks like you were practically having sex with that man on a dance floor while wearing your wedding ring," she said sharply. "Your sister called me this morning. She's worried sick about you." "Sabine was there," I said defensively. "She saw everything. It was just dancing." "Dancing," my mother repeated flatly. "Calantha, I've been married for 34 years. I know the difference between dancing and what you were doing in that video." I hung up on her and immediately called Sabine. "Oh, thank God," she said when she answered. "I've been trying to figure out how to handle this. My phone hasn't stopped ringing." "What do you mean, handle this?" I asked. "There's nothing to handle. So, what if people took some videos? I'm allowed to have fun." There was a long pause. "Calantha, honey, you need to see how this looks from the outside. I was there, and even I was uncomfortable watching you and Jessie." "You were laughing," I said. "You were encouraging me." "I was drunk," Sabine said quietly. "We all were, but that doesn't change the fact that you're married, and that video makes it look like you're cheating on Adrien." "I'm not cheating on anyone," I snapped. "I danced with a friend. That's it. If people want to make it into something dirty, that's their problem." But even as I said it, I was scrolling through more comments, watching the video spread from account to account like wildfire. Someone had tagged Adrien's office. Someone else had tagged his mother. By the time I got to work, the whispers had already started. Jennifer Wu, my desk neighbor, gave me a look of fake concern as I sat down. "Rough weekend?" she asked sweetly. "It was fine," I said, logging into my computer and trying to pretend everything was normal. "That's good," Jennifer said. "I just saw some concerning things on social media, and I wanted to make sure you were okay." I could feel other people listening to our conversation. The office was open plan, which meant privacy was basically impossible, and I knew that everyone had probably seen the video by now. "I'm fine," I said firmly. "People just like to gossip about nothing." But it wasn't nothing, and it wasn't going away. Throughout the morning, I kept getting texts and calls from people who'd seen the video. Some were concerned friends asking if I was okay. Others were more judgmental, asking what I thought I was doing. The worst one came from Issa's teacher. "Hi, Mrs. Price," the voicemail said. "This is Ms. Rodriguez from Issa's school. I just wanted to check in and make sure everything is okay at home. Issa seems a little distracted today, and I know sometimes family stress can affect children's behavior. Please give me a call when you have a chance." Family stress. They knew. Somehow the gossip had made it all the way to my daughter's elementary school. I locked myself in the bathroom and tried to think. This was getting out of hand, but it wasn't my fault. I hadn't done anything wrong. I'd gone out with friends, had some drinks, and danced with someone. Single people did that every night without anyone caring. The problem was that I wasn't single. And the problem was that in a small suburban community like ours, everyone knew everyone, and gossip spread faster than the flu. I needed to control the narrative. I needed to get ahead of this before it got any worse. So I posted on Facebook. It's really sad when people have nothing better to do than try to create drama where none exists, I wrote. I went out with friends this weekend and had a good time. If that threatens some people, maybe they should examine their own insecurities instead of projecting them onto others. Marriage doesn't mean you stop being a person with friends and interests. Trust and communication matter more than paranoid jealousy. I tagged Adrien and hit post before I could second-guess myself. Within minutes, the comments started pouring in. Some people supported me, saying I had every right to go out and have fun, but others were less kind. Girl, that video tells a different story. Your husband deserves better. This is embarrassing. Someone needs to humble you. I started deleting the negative comments and blocking people who disagreed with me. If they couldn't see that I was the victim here, that was their problem. But then Adrien called. Take it down, he said without preamble. Take what down? The Facebook post. Take it down now. Why? I asked. I'm just defending myself. You're making it worse, he said, and his voice sounded tired in a way I'd never heard before. You're making it sound like this is my fault for not trusting you. Isn't it? I said. If you trusted me, you'd know that video doesn't mean anything. There was a long silence. Calantha, I've seen the video. Everyone has seen the video. That's not just dancing, and we both know it. So what are you saying? I asked, my voice rising. Are you accusing me of cheating? I'm saying you need to stop making this worse and start thinking about how this affects our daughter. He hung up before I could respond. I sat in the bathroom stall, staring at my phone, feeling like the walls were closing in around me. But I wasn't ready to give up. I wasn't ready to admit that I'd done anything wrong. So I left the Facebook post up. And when people continued to comment, I continued to defend myself. If everyone wanted to make me the villain in this story, fine. But I wasn't going down without a fight. I had no idea that the fight was just getting started. By Wednesday, the situation had escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. The video wasn't just circulating among my friends anymore. It had spread through our entire social network like some kind of digital plague. Parents at Issa's school were talking about it. People at Adrien's office were asking him uncomfortable questions. Even the checkout lady at our grocery store gave me a knowing look when I went shopping. But the breaking point came Thursday morning when Tasha confronted me at the family restaurant where Adrien and I used to take Issa for pancakes every weekend. I was meeting Sabine for lunch, hoping to get some support from the one person who'd actually been there that night. But when I walked into Romano's family restaurant, I saw Tasha sitting at a corner booth, and I knew immediately that this wasn't a coincidence. Calantha, she called out, loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. We need to talk. I considered turning around and walking out, but that would have looked like I was running away. Instead, I walked over to her table with my head held high. What do you want, Tasha? I want you to stay away from my boyfriend, she said bluntly, and I want you to stop spreading lies about what happened that night. I haven't spread any lies, I said, sliding into the booth across from her. And I don't know what you mean about Jessie. We're just friends. Tasha laughed, but there was no humor in it. Friends don't dance like that. Friends don't send text messages at 2 a.m. asking if someone had fun. Friends don't... I never sent Jessie any inappropriate messages, I interrupted, but even as I said it, I was trying to remember exactly what I'd texted him after we got home from the club. Really? Tasha pulled out her phone and started reading. Sunday, 2:17 a.m. Had such an amazing time dancing with you tonight. Felt like the old me again. Sunday, 2:19 a.m. Adrien's being weird about everything. Some people just don't know how to have fun. Sunday, 2:23 a.m. Miss hanging out with someone who actually appreciates me. My cheeks burned. I had sent those messages, but they weren't what she was making them sound like. I'd been drunk and emotional, and I just wanted someone to understand what I was going through. Those are completely innocent, I said. Are they? Tasha leaned forward. Because Jesse showed them to me, and he's concerned about you. He thinks you might be getting the wrong idea about your friendship. The words hit me like a slap. Jesse had shown her my messages. Jesse was concerned about me. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, but my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. I'm talking about the fact that you're a married woman who's acting like she's single, Tasha said. I'm talking about the fact that you're destroying your marriage and dragging other people into your drama. My marriage is none of your business, I snapped. It became my business when you started throwing yourself at my boyfriend, Tasha shot back. And it became everyone's business when you decided to post that ridiculous Facebook rant about how your husband doesn't trust you. I looked around the restaurant and realized that people were staring. The elderly couple at the next table was pretending to read their menus, while obviously listening to every word. A young mother with 2 kids was holding her phone like she might be recording. You're making a scene, I said quietly. I'm making a scene? Tasha's voice got louder. You made the scene when you decided to act like a single woman at a nightclub. I'm just cleaning up the mess. That's when Sabine walked in. I saw her spot us immediately, and for a moment, I thought she was going to come over and defend me. Instead, she hesitated by the door, looking uncomfortable. Sabine, I called out, come tell Tasha what really happened that night. My sister walked over slowly, like she was approaching a crime scene. Hey, Tasha, she said quietly. Tell her, I said. Tell her that nothing inappropriate happened. Tell her that I was just having fun with friends. Sabine looked between us, and I could see the conflict on her face. Calantha, maybe we should talk about this privately. No, I said firmly. I'm tired of people acting like I did something wrong. You were there. You saw everything. Was I inappropriate with Jesse? There was a long pause. Too long. You were very friendly, Sabine said finally. Friendly? Tasha repeated. Is that what we're calling it? I was dancing, I said, my voice getting louder despite my efforts to stay calm. I was having fun. I'm sorry if that threatens you, but I'm not going to apologize for having a personality. Having a personality? Tasha stood up from the booth. You want to know what having a personality is? It's being confident enough in yourself that you don't need to get validation from other people's boyfriends. It's being secure enough in your marriage that you don't need to act single to feel good about yourself. You don't know anything about my marriage, I said, standing up too. I know your husband moved into the guest room, Tasha said quietly. Jesse told me. He's worried about you, but he's also worried about getting caught in the middle of whatever this is. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. How did Jesse know about the guest room? Had Adrien told him? Had someone else? That's temporary, I said. We're just working through some things. Are you? Tasha picked up her purse. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're working through them by destroying everything you have. She started to walk away, then turned back. Stay away from Jesse, Calantha. I mean it. He's not interested in being your marriage counselor or your ego boost. Find someone else to make you feel special. After she left, I sat back down in the booth, my hands shaking. Sabine slid in across from me, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. She's right, isn't she? I said quietly. You think I'm destroying my marriage. I think you're scared, Sabine said carefully. I think you're feeling trapped and unappreciated, and you're making some bad choices because of it. So you're taking their side too? There are no sides, Calantha. There's just you, making decisions that are hurting the people who love you. I wanted to argue with her, to defend myself, to explain that everyone was overreacting. But sitting in that restaurant, with strangers staring at me, and my own sister looking disappointed, I finally started to understand how bad things had gotten. The video wasn't going away, the gossip wasn't dying down, and my husband wasn't coming back to our bedroom. I was losing everything, and for the first time since this whole mess started, I was beginning to wonder if maybe, just maybe, it was my fault. The next few days passed in a blur of whispered conversations and avoided eye contact. Everywhere I went, I felt like people were talking about me. At work, Jennifer Wu would stop mid-conversation when I walked by. At the grocery store, other mothers would steer their carts away from mine. Even at the gas station, I caught the attendant watching me with obvious recognition. But the worst part was what was happening at home. Adrien had indeed moved into the guest room, and he was treating me like a stranger. He'd come home from work, help Isa with her homework, make dinner, and then disappear upstairs without saying more than a few words to me. When I tried to talk to him about what was happening, he'd give me these cold, polite responses that hurt worse than yelling would have. "We need to discuss this," I said Friday night, cornering him in the kitchen after Isa had gone to bed. "Discuss what?" he asked, not looking up from the dishes he was washing. "Everything. The video, the gossip, the fact that you're acting like I don't exist." "I'm not acting like anything," he said calmly. "I'm trying to figure out how to handle this situation." "What situation?" "I went out with friends and had some drinks. That's not a situation. That's a normal night out." Finally, he looked at me. "Calantha, do you honestly believe that? Do you really think what happened at that club was just a normal night out?" "Yes," I said, but the word came out weaker than I intended. Adrien dried his hands on a dish towel and turned to face me fully. "I've been married to you for 8 years. I know what you look like when you're just having fun with friends. That video, that wasn't just fun. That was something else." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I watched my wife dance with another man like she wanted to take him home. I'm saying that I read the Facebook post where you basically called me a paranoid, jealous husband for being upset about it. I'm saying that our daughter's teacher called because other kids are talking about their parents' conversations about us." The last part hit me like a physical blow. Kids are talking about us. Third graders, Calantha. 7-year-old children are gossiping about our marriage because their parents can't stop talking about that video. I sank into one of the kitchen chairs, suddenly feeling exhausted. "It's not fair. I made one mistake." "You made a series of choices," Adrien corrected. "You chose to get drunk at my mother's birthday party. You chose to mock gifts that meant something to my family. You chose to go out to a club instead of coming home to talk about what happened. You chose to dance with Jessie like that. You chose to post on Facebook instead of apologizing. Every step of this has been a choice." "So what do you want me to do?" I asked. "How do I fix this?" Adrien was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know if you can." That night, I lay in our empty bed, staring at the ceiling and trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. A week ago, my biggest problem was being bored with my routine. Now my marriage was falling apart, my reputation was destroyed, and my daughter was being affected by playground gossip. I picked up my phone and scrolled through social media, looking for some sign that the storm was passing. Instead, I found new comments on old posts, new shares of the video, new speculation about my marriage. Someone had created a group chat called Romano's Drama, where people were discussing the confrontation with Tasha. Somehow, I'd been added to it, and I could see dozens of messages analyzing every word of our argument. "Did you see how she tried to get her sister to lie for her? The sister looked so uncomfortable. I heard the husband moved out. My cousin works with him. He's devastated. She's delusional if she thinks that was just dancing." I left the group chat and blocked half the people in it, but I knew it wouldn't matter. The gossip had taken on a life of its own. Saturday morning, I decided to take Isa to the park, hoping that getting out of the house would help both of us feel better. But when we got there, I noticed other parents pulling their children away from the playground equipment when they saw us coming. "Mummy," Issa said quietly, "why is Emma's mum looking at us like that?" I followed her gaze and saw Linda Morrison, a woman I'd chatted with at school events, staring at us with obvious disapproval. When she realized I was looking back, she quickly turned away and started talking to another mother in hushed tones. "She's probably just having a bad day, sweetheart," I said, but I could feel my cheeks burning with embarrassment. We stayed at the park for less than 20 minutes before I couldn't take the stares and whispers anymore. On the drive home, Issa was unusually quiet. "Are you and Daddy getting divorced?" she asked suddenly. The question hit me like a truck. "Why would you ask that?" "Because Tyler's parents got divorced, and first his dad moved to the guest room, and then they had lots of fights, and then his dad moved to an apartment." I pulled over to the side of the road and turned to look at my daughter. She was 7 years old, with Adrien's serious eyes and my stubborn chin, and she looked scared, in a way that broke my heart. "Daddy and I are just working through some grown-up problems," I said carefully. "Sometimes adults need space to figure things out." "Is it because of the video?" My blood went cold. "What video?" "The one Tyler's mum was talking about. She said you were dancing with someone who wasn't Daddy, and that's why everyone's talking about our family." I sat there in the car, watching my 7-year-old daughter try to make sense of adult drama that she should never have been exposed to, and I finally understood the full scope of what I'd done. This wasn't just about me anymore. It wasn't just about my marriage or my reputation or my need for validation. It was about my child, who was now dealing with playground gossip and adult disapproval because of choices I'd made. When we got home, Adrien was in his office with the door closed. I could hear him talking on the phone, his voice low and serious. When he came out an hour later, he looked like he'd made some kind of decision. "We need to talk," he said. "Okay." "Not here. Issa doesn't need to hear this." He arranged for his mother to watch Issa for the evening, which should have been my first clue that this wasn't going to be a normal conversation. When he told me we were going to meet at a law office downtown, I knew that my world was about to change forever. "Adrien," I said as we drove through the city in separate cars, "please don't do anything drastic. We can work through this." But looking at his face in the rearview mirror of the car behind me, I could see that he'd already made up his mind. The walls weren't just closing in anymore. They were about to collapse entirely. The law office of Peterson and Associates was nothing like I'd expected. Instead of the dramatic courtroom setting I'd seen in movies, it was just a sterile conference room with fluorescent lighting and a long wooden table. Adrien was already there when I arrived, sitting across from a middle-aged woman in a navy blue suit who introduced herself as Sarah Peterson. "Please sit down, Mrs. Price," she said, gesturing to the chair across from Adrien. I sat down slowly, my heart pounding. "I don't understand why we need lawyers. Can't we just talk about this at home?" "We've tried talking," Adrien said quietly. "It's not working." Sarah Peterson opened a thick folder and spread several documents across the table. "Mrs. Price, your husband has asked me to help facilitate a separation agreement. He's hoping we can resolve this amicably without involving the courts." "Separation," the word came out as a whisper. "Adrien, you can't be serious." "I'm completely serious," he said, and his voice was calm, in a way that scared me more than yelling would have. "This marriage isn't working, Calantha. It hasn't been working for a long time, and what happened last week just made it impossible to ignore anymore." "What happened last week was nothing," I said desperately. "I made a mistake. I had too much to drink and I acted stupid, but that doesn't mean we should throw away 8 years of marriage." Sarah Peterson cleared her throat. "Mrs. Price, I think it would be helpful if you understood the full scope of what we're discussing here." She pulled out a tablet and turned it toward me. On the screen was the video from the club, but this wasn't the short clip I'd seen on social media. This was a longer version, showing the entire evening, me laughing at Miriam's gifts, me dancing with Jessie, me sending text messages while pressed up against him. "Where did you get this?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Your sister provided it," Adrien said, "along with screenshots of text messages you sent that night and a statement about what she witnessed." I stared at him in shock. "Sabine gave you this?" "She's concerned about Issa," he said simply. "She thinks our daughter deserves better than being caught in the middle of this drama." Sarah Peterson pulled out more documents. "We also have statements from several witnesses at the club, including Mr. Lin, who has made it clear that he feels you misinterpreted the nature of your friendship." Jessie had given a statement. Jessie, who had danced with me, who had told me I was amazing, who had made me feel beautiful and desired. "I don't understand," I said. "Jessie and I are friends. We were just having fun." "According to his statement," Sarah Peterson read, "he was uncomfortable with your behavior that night and has since asked that you not contact him anymore. He's provided copies of text messages you sent after the incident, which he characterizes as inappropriate for a married woman." She slid a stack of printed screenshots across the table. I recognized my own words, but seeing them printed out in black and white made them look different, desperate, pathetic. "Had such an amazing time dancing with you tonight. Adrien's being weird about everything. Miss hanging out with someone who actually appreciates me. You showed me that you appreciate me in ways my husband doesn't." I didn't remember sending that last one. I must have been drunker than I thought. "These don't mean anything," I said weakly. "I was upset. I was drunk. People say stupid things when they're emotional." "Mrs. Price," Sarah Peterson said gently, "your husband isn't trying to punish you. He's trying to protect his daughter and himself from further embarrassment and drama." "What does that mean?" Adrien spoke up. "It means I want a legal separation with a custody arrangement that prioritizes Issa's well-being. It means I want to divide our assets fairly but quickly. And it means I want this to be as private as possible, so our daughter doesn't have to deal with any more gossip than she already has." I looked around the sterile conference room, at the legal documents spread across the table, at my husband's calm, determined face, and I finally understood that this was really happening. "You're divorcing me because I danced with someone," I said. "I'm divorcing you because you've shown me that you don't respect our marriage, our family, or me," Adrien replied. "The dancing was just the final straw." "But I love you," I said, and I was surprised to realize that it was true. Despite everything, despite all my complaints about our boring life and his lack of excitement, I did love him. I loved our life together, our daughter, our quiet suburban routine that I'd been so desperate to escape. "I know you do," he said softly, "but love isn't enough anymore. Trust is gone, Calantha. Respect is gone. And I can't live in a marriage where I'm constantly wondering what you're going to do next to humiliate our family." Sarah Peterson pushed a document toward me. "This is a separation agreement. It outlines custody arrangements, financial responsibilities, and living situations. I'd recommend you have your own attorney review it before signing, but Mr. Price is being very generous with the terms." I stared at the papers without really seeing them. "What about Issa?" "Joint custody," Adrien said. "She'll stay with me during the week, and with you on weekends, at least initially. If you can demonstrate that you've addressed the issues that led to this separation, we can revisit the arrangement." "What issues?" I asked, though I was afraid I already knew the answer. "Your drinking," he said bluntly. "Your need for validation from other men. Your inability to take responsibility for your actions. Your tendency to blame everyone else when things go wrong." Each word hit me like a physical blow. Was that really how he saw me? Was that really who I'd become? "I can change," I said desperately. "I can fix this." "Maybe you can," he said, "but you'll have to do it on your own. I can't be married to someone I don't trust, and right now, I don't trust you at all." Sarah Peterson handed me a pen. "Mrs. Price, this agreement protects both of you. It ensures that your daughter has stability and that both parents can move forward with their lives." I looked at the pen, then at the papers. then at my husband's face. He looked tired but resolved, like someone who had made a difficult decision and was at peace with it. "If I sign this," I said slowly, "is there any chance we could work things out later?" "I don't know," Adrien said honestly. "Right now, I just need space to figure out how to rebuild my life and protect our daughter from any more drama." I picked up the pen with shaking hands. As I signed my name on the separation agreement, I thought about the handmade photo album I'd mocked just a week ago. I thought about the caption under our Christmas photo, "So grateful for the wonderful woman who makes our son happy." I had been that woman once. Miriam had been grateful for me once. Adrien had loved me enough to build a stable life with me once. And I had thrown it all away for a few hours of feeling desired by a man who didn't even want me. As I finished signing the papers, Adrien stood up and shook hands with his lawyer. He looked at me one last time, and I saw something in his eyes that I'd never seen before. Pity. "I'll pick up my things tomorrow while you're at work," he said. "Issa and I will be staying with my mother until I find an apartment." And then he was gone, leaving me alone in that sterile conference room with a stack of legal documents and the ruins of my marriage. I had gotten exactly what I thought I wanted, freedom from my boring suburban life. But as I sat there in the silence, I realized that I had never understood the difference between freedom and loneliness. Now I was about to learn.